Relegated to the hallway at my sister's wedding, I walked out. The shocking truth that erupted next turned their celebration upside down. Curious about the drama that unfolded, I'm Emily Harris, a 35-year-old graphic designer living in a cozy loft in Albany, New York, where winters dip to 15 degrees Fahrenheit and autumn bathes the Hudson Valley in fiery oranges and reds. Each morning, I brew a pot of black coffee, sketch ideas at my drafting table, and drive 3 miles to my studio, where my designs bring brands to life with vibrant visuals. My work isn't glamorous to everyone, but it's my passion, forged through late nights and relentless grit. My family, however, never cared to understand it. To them, I've always been the quiet older sister, the one in simple cardigans, no flashy jewelry, and always scribbling in a sketchbook. My younger sister, Sophie, 2 years my junior, was their pride and joy, the golden child who could do no wrong. Growing up in our family's colonial-style home, 10 miles from downtown Albany, I learned early that love was unevenly distributed. Sophie, with her radiant smile and effortless charm, was the star of every family gathering. At Christmas dinners, relatives would flock to her, exclaiming, "Sophie, you're stunning in that dress," or "Sophie, you landed a role in that play? Incredible." Her laughter filled our dining room, her presence a magnet for adoration.
Me?
I was barely a shadow in family photos, often overlooked. If anyone mentioned me, it was a vague, "Oh, Emily's doing some art thing," as if my career were a hobby not worth explaining. I used to believe that if I stayed steady, supported them quietly, and kept my head down, my parents, David and Linda Harris, would one day see me with the same pride they lavished on Sophie. But their eyes were always fixed on her, their praise reserved for her every triumph. The disparity was stark. I remember one Thanksgiving when I was 15, sitting around our oak table, the air rich with roasted turkey and Mom's cranberry sauce. Sophie, then 13, unwrapped a $250 charm bracelet, her squeals echoing as relatives clapped. Dad handed her a gift card for a boutique, saying, "You're our star, Sophie." My gift? A $15 sketch pad with a note. "For Emily, keep drawing." Mom smiled and said, "You're so independent, Emily. You don't need much." I nodded, my throat tight, and slipped upstairs, the sting of being an afterthought cutting deep. That was the pattern. Sophie's moments were celebrated with fanfare, mine with a nod, if that. Family gatherings only widened the gap. Sophie's high school graduation, held in our backyard 5 miles from town, was a spectacle, catered lobster rolls, a string quartet, and a banner proclaiming Sophie's future. Her 18th birthday brought a weekend trip to a Lake Placid cabin 120 miles north, with snowmobiles and a roaring bonfire. My milestones? A quiet dinner at home with store-bought apple pie. Maybe a good job, Emily, if I pressed for it. When I graduated college with honors, Mom handed me a $20 grocery store cake and said, "You'll figure it out, won't you?" No party, no cheers, just the assumption I'd keep grinding while Sophie basked in the spotlight. I told myself it was okay. In America, we're taught that family is about sacrifice, about showing up even when it's tough. I believed if I gave enough, my time, my support, my heart, they'd see me as more than the serious sister. I was proud of my work, building a design studio that landed $50,000 contracts with national brands. I valued self-respect, earned through perseverance and countless revisions. But my family didn't care. They never asked about the campaigns I'd crafted, the clients I'd won, or the thrill of seeing my designs on billboards along I-90. When I mentioned my studio, Dad would nod absently, saying, "Sounds niche," before turning to Sophie's latest feat, a new acting role, a new boyfriend, a new moment to shine. The imbalance wasn't just emotional, it was financial. For years, I helped with family expenses, sending $300 a month for their utilities when Dad's carpentry business slowed, plus $1,000 for Mom's knee surgery and $500 for Sophie's acting classes. They never asked if I could afford it, just said, "Sophie's chasing her dreams. Can you pitch in?" I did, quietly, as if it were my duty to prop them up while Sophie dazzled. Over 3 years, I sent $12,600, each payment a silent hope they'd value me. But they didn't. At family dinners, Sophie's tales of auditions and dates stole the show, her charm drawing gasps. If I spoke, the conversation shifted, my words evaporating. Sophie would tease, "Emily's the serious one," and Mom would chuckle, but their dismissal masked a truth. I was invisible unless they needed something. The sharpest wound came 3 years ago, during Thanksgiving, 10 miles from home. Sophie was in Portugal with a boyfriend, and the house felt oddly calm. Mom asked me to find family photos for an album, a rare moment of inclusion. In my old room, unchanged with its twin bed and dusty bookshelf, I found the photo box but noticed a leather notebook in Mom's vanity drawer. Curiosity drew me in, and I opened it to find page after page of Mom's handwriting, chronicling Sophie's life. Sophie's first day of kindergarten, so brave. Sophie loves my baked pasta. Sophie's favorite gift, a nurse outfit at 8. Not a single mention of me, no birthday, no milestone, not even my name. I confronted Mom, my voice trembling. You wrote this all about Sophie? She smiled, unperturbed. I had to remember everything for Sophie. She's sensitive. I pressed. What about me? Her eyes didn't waver. You're independent, Emily. You don't need to be written about. That moment shattered a hope I'd carried, that I was part of their story. I'd given $12,600 my time, my heart, and they'd never seen me as a daughter, only as the one who didn't need them. In America, we talk about family as a place where you're cherished, but my family cherished Sophie, leaving me to fend for myself. I valued perseverance, showing up for a family that didn't show up for me. But that Thanksgiving, as I drove the 10 miles home, the truth settled like a 20 degrees Fahrenheit winter frost. I wasn't their daughter in the way Sophie was. I was the one they called when bills were due, the one they overlooked when love was handed out. I kept hoping for a moment when they'd say, Emily, we're proud of you. But hope, I'd learn, could be a heavy burden if you carried it alone too long. The late summer sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the lakeside resort in Vermont, 150 miles from my Albany loft. The air was a warm 75 degrees Fahrenheit, scented with blooming roses and fresh-cut grass, as I pulled my Toyota Corolla into the parking lot. I'd driven 3 hours to attend my sister Sophie's wedding, intending to play the supportive older sister, smile for photos, and celebrate her day. The resort, with its flower-filled gardens and soaring glass-ceilinged banquet halls, was a vision of elegance, the perfect stage for Sophie's moment. I smoothed my wine-colored dress, a $200 purchase I'd chosen to fit the upscale event, and took a deep breath, steadying myself. I wasn't here to steal the spotlight. Sophie was the star, and I'd long accepted my role in her shadow. But what awaited inside would push that acceptance to its breaking point. Stepping through the resort's grand entrance, I was greeted by a staff member in a crisp black suit, his smile professional but distant. At the reception desk, a young woman with a dazzling grin asked, Your name? Emily Harris, I replied softly, adjusting my purse strap. Her smile flickered, a brief hesitation crossing her perfectly made-up face. She flipped through the guest list, her fingers moving quickly, then paused. Her eyes narrowed slightly before she looked up. Here it is. You're at table H, in the hallway area. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. The hallway? Yes, just outside the banquet hall, near the coat check, she said, her tone forced casual, as if it were routine. I glanced at the seating chart, a glossy display of elegance. My parents, David and Linda Harris, were at the head table, surrounded by Sophie's friends and her groom's colleagues under glittering chandeliers. My name? Nowhere in the main hall. There's a mistake, I said, my voice steady despite the heat rising in my chest. I'm the bride's sister. The receptionist's smile tightened, more awkward now. No mistake, I'm afraid. This is your assigned spot. My throat burned, a mix of shock and humiliation. I'd driven 150 miles, spent $12,600 over 3 years on family bills, $300 a month for utilities, $1,000 for Mom's surgery, $500 for Sophie's acting classes, and they'd seated me in the hallway, like an uninvited guest? I forced a nod, clutching my place card, and followed her directions, each step heavier than the last. The hallway was a jarring contrast to the banquet hall's splendor. It smelled faintly of mothballs from the coat check and silk flowers, a narrow space with a small, wobbly table marked Table H. My name, Emily Harris, was printed in elegant cursive on a card, a cruel mockery next to the chipped wooden chair. I stood there, my wine-colored dress feeling out of place, as laughter and music spilled through the glass doors. Inside, I saw Mom adjusting Sophie's veil, their smiles radiant, as if nothing was amiss. Dad stood nearby, toasting guests, his glass raised. They hadn't even looked my way. I approached Mom, my heels clicking on the marble floor, my heart pounding. Mom, can I talk to you? I said, keeping my voice calm. Linda barely glanced at me, her focus on Sophie's veil. Not now, Emily. We're busy. I bit my lip, swallowing the hurt. Just a minute, please. She groaned, clearly irritated, and stepped aside. Sophie stayed put, her eyes locking onto me with a smile that was cold and sharp. I've been seated in the hallway, I said, my voice tight, but controlled. Mom shrugged, as if it were trivial. We had to prioritize close family. You know that. My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. I am close family. I'm your daughter. Mom let out a soft, icy laugh. Don't make a big deal out of this, Emily. It's just a seat. Sophie chimed in, her eyes glinting with smug satisfaction. It's probably a mix-up. Weddings are hectic, you know. Her voice was sugary, but her smirk betrayed her. She was reveling in this. I turned to Mom, searching for a hint of remorse, but she sighed, exasperated. Don't ruin your sister's big day, Emily. You should be grateful you were even invited. The word grateful struck like a blade, a stone lodged in my throat. Grateful to sit by the coat rack. Grateful to be treated like a stranger in my own family. Dad approached, his voice low, as if hoping to defuse the tension. It's just a seat, sweetheart. Don't make it a thing. I stood frozen, anger simmering, not explosive but deep, a cold fire in my veins. I forced an empty smile and turned away without a word. They expected me to take it, to sit quietly in the hallway as I'd done for years. $12, $600 in bills, $300 a month, $1,000 for Mom's surgery, all without complaint. But this time I wouldn't. I walked out of the main hall, my heels echoing on the marble, the air thick with the scent of wedding flowers and my own resolve. In the hallway, I paused, clutching my place card. Emily Harris, Table H, hallway area, the cursive a mocking flourish. Sophie's voice cut through, light but venomous. Emily. I turned. She stood there, arms crossed, her veil fluttering in the cool air, her makeup flawless, but her smile cruel. Are you upset? She asked, her tone dripping with false concern. Because of the seating? I gave a dry laugh. I'm not upset. I'm disappointed. Sophie tilted her head, her eyes gleaming with amusement. You're always so sensitive. It's just a seat, Emily. Who cares? I bit my cheek, keeping my voice steady. It's not the seat. It's how this family treats me. It's always been this way. Sophie shrugged, stepping closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. So what? You still showed up, wore the pretty dress, hoped for attention. You're desperate for their approval. It's sad. Her words stung, but I met her gaze, unflinching. No, Sophie. What's sad is you need to tear me down to feel loved. She paused, caught off guard, but then laughed, dismissive. You always kill the mood. Footsteps approached, Mom, her face tense, as if dragged from the party to deal with a nuisance. I heard there's drama out here, she said, eyes on Sophie, barely glancing at me. I took a breath, my voice firm. Mom, I'm seated in the hallway. I'm not a distant guest. I'm your daughter. She frowned, then gave a tight smile. We had limited seats, Emily. I prioritized people closer to Sophie, her friends, Aunt Patty, those there when she was sick. You've always been independent. I didn't worry about you. I laughed softly, the sound bitter. You didn't worry about me, so that justifies treating me like I don't exist? Sophie jumped in, her voice syrupy. Emily, stop it. Mom didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting. I turned to Mom, my eyes steady. Do you realize how grateful sounds when you've made me feel like a stranger? She said nothing, no apology, no warmth. Dad's voice came from behind, low and tired. It's just a seat, Emily. I faced him, my tone sharp. The least you could do is look me in the eye. He glanced up, confusion flickering, then fading. Sophie smirked. If you're so unhappy, just leave. I looked at them, Mom's indifference, Dad's avoidance, Sophie's cruelty, and something shifted. If they decided I didn't belong, I wouldn't beg anymore. I tightened my grip on my purse, turned, and walked down the carpeted hall, my heels silent, my resolve loud. Behind me, the music played on, laughter and clinking glasses filling a world I was never truly part of. The marble hallway of the Vermont resort, 150 miles from my Albany loft, felt colder than the 75 degrees Fahrenheit summer evening outside as I stood clutching my place card, Emily Harris, Table H, hallway area. The elegant cursive mocked me, a cruel reminder of my family's betrayal. My parents, David and Linda Harris, had seated me near the coat check, outside the glittering banquet hall where Sophie's wedding unfolded, to avoid awkwardness with her guests. Their words, you should be grateful you were invited. It's just a seat. Don't ruin Sophie's day, cut deeper than the humiliation of the hallway. My heart ached, not just from the seating arrangement, but from the deeper wound it exposed, a lifetime of being invisible in my own family. I'd always been the steady one, the one who kept the Harris family afloat when times were tough. For 3 years, I'd sent $300 a month for their utilities, $1,000 for Mom's knee surgery, $500 for Sophie's acting classes, a total of $12,600. I'd driven 10 miles to their colonial-style home to help with chores, stayed up late refining designs for my studio, and never complained. Each payment, each quiet act, was a plea for their love, a belief that my sacrifices would earn me a place in their hearts. But that night, as Mom's dismissive shrug and Sophie's smug smirk replayed in my mind, I realized those sacrifices had been for a family that saw me as a resource, not a daughter. The pain wasn't new. It was a wound reopened, raw and searing. I flashed back to 3 years ago during Thanksgiving, 10 miles from home. Sophie was in Portugal, and the house was calm. Mom asked me to find family photos for an album, a rare moment of inclusion. In my old room, I found a leather notebook in her vanity drawer. Curiosity drew me in, and I opened it to find page after page of Mom's handwriting, chronicling Sophie's life. Sophie's first day of kindergarten, so brave. Sophie loves my baked pasta. Sophie's favorite gift, a nurse outfit. Not a single mention of me, no birthday, no milestone, not even my name. I'd confronted Mom, my voice trembling. You wrote this all about Sophie? She'd smiled, unperturbed. I had to remember everything for Sophie. She's sensitive. I'd pressed. What about me? Her eyes were steady. You're independent, Emily. You don't need to be written about. That moment had broken something, a hope I'd carried that I was part of their story. The Vermont Resort's hallway, 150 miles from my Albany loft, was a cold, quiet limbo, its silk flower scent mingling with mothballs from the coat check. I stood clutching my place card. Emily Harris, table H, hallway area, my wine-colored dress a stark contrast to the chip chair beside me. The 75 degrees Fahrenheit summer evening outside couldn't touch the chill inside me. My family, David, Linda, and Sophie Harris, had banished me to this corner, dismissing my pain with "it's just a seat," and "be grateful you were invited." Their words, coupled with Sophie's cruel taunt, "you're desperate for their approval," it's sad, had shattered years of hope. I'd given $12,600, $300 a month for utilities, $1,000 for Mom's surgery, $500 for Sophie's classes. Yet I was an outsider in their world. The pain was raw, but beneath it, a spark of resolve ignited. I was done begging for their love. It was time to set a boundary and reclaim my worth. I tightened my grip on my purse, my heels silent on the plush carpet as I walked toward the exit, each step a rejection of the role I'd played for 35 years, the quiet sister who took it all. I'd believed family meant showing up, no matter the cost, but they'd shown me I didn't belong. As I passed the glass doors, the banquet hall's music and laughter felt like a distant world, one I'd never been invited into. I stopped at a bench by a window, the lake's reflection shimmering outside, and sank down, my heart tangled in memories of being overlooked. $12,600, a notebook filled only with Sophie's name, a lifetime of "you're independent, Emily." I was ready to leave, to walk away from their dismissal, when a voice broke the silence. "Emily." It was Nathan Carter, Sophie's groom, his tailored tux slightly rumpled, a champagne flute in hand. His dark hair was tousled, his expression a mix of stress and curiosity. I stood, smoothing my dress. "Nathan," I said, nodding. He studied me, eyes narrowing. "Seeing you here, by the coat check, it doesn't feel right." I gave a bitter laugh. "Your family decided I'm not worthy of a seat inside." He didn't respond, a heavy silence settling between us, two near strangers bound by this moment. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his voice low, hand tightening around the glass. I met his gaze. "Go ahead." He hesitated, glancing at his phone, then shook his head. "Lately, Sophie's been different. Controlling, secretive. There are things she doesn't want me to know, and I'm starting to think something's off." His words stirred a memory. Sophie's sharp jabs at family dinners, her smug "you're sad" just moments ago. I'd stayed silent for years, swallowing her cruelty to keep the peace, but Nathan's vulnerability cracked that restraint. "Brace yourself," I said slowly, "because you might not know who Sophie really is." His eyes widened, but before he could reply, a steady voice cut in. "If you're unsure, perhaps your mother can clarify." We turned. Margaret Carter, Nathan's mother, stood at the hallway's end, holding a phone, her navy gown elegant, her platinum hair in a sleek bun. Her presence was commanding, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She approached, handing the phone to Nathan. "Look." He swiped the screen, his brow furrowing, then freezing in shock. His hand trembled as he scrolled, his face shifting from confusion to anger, then to something broken. His voice cracked. "She told her friend she's training me to be the perfect husband. Said I'm too predictable, and as long as she stays sweet, this house will be hers." Margaret nodded. "There are messages to her stylist too. Sophie said, months after the wedding, she'd make you dependent, and everything will be mine." I stood silent, my heart pounding. Nathan sank into a chair, still gripping the phone. "I can't believe this," he whispered. "Mom, how did you get these?" Margaret glanced at me, then answered. "A friend at the studio Sophie hired sent me the backup file by mistake when I rescheduled a fitting." I read it. The air felt frozen, the weight of Sophie's deceit pressing down. Nathan looked at me, his eyes searching. "Did you know?" I shook my head. "Not this, but I've seen who she is, how she treats people like me." Margaret's gaze softened. "Emily, thank you for staying." I nodded, not needing thanks, only the truth to be free. Margaret led us to a private conference room on the resort's second floor, the hum of the AC and a faint breeze through an open window the only sounds. Nathan sat at the table's head, his eyes blank. I took a seat to his right, my hands in my lap, heart racing. The door opened, and Sophie entered with Mom, Linda's face confused, Sophie's confidence tinged with caution. "What's going on?" Sophie asked, her voice high, trying to reclaim control. "Why are you pulling people from my wedding?" Nathan stood, his gaze cold, and placed a white envelope on the table. "You know what this is?" Sophie stared, silent. "Petition to annul the marriage," he said, voice steady. "I've signed it." The room fell silent. Mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Sophie stepped back, lips pressed tight. "You're joking, right?" she asked, her voice wavering. Margaret spoke, sharp as steel. "We read your messages, Sophie. Every word about Nathan, me, this family. There's no denying it." Nathan cut in, his voice raw with hurt. "You called my mother a rich old woman who writes checks. You said I'm easy to manipulate. Pretend to be fragile, and you get anything." "Want more quotes?" Sophie froze, her face paling. Mom stood still, as if seeing her daughter's true self for the first time. Dad entered, his expression heavy. "Is this true?" he asked Sophie. She didn't answer. He turned to Mom. "Did you know?" Mom shook her head weakly. "I didn't think Sophie could do this." Dad's voice was slow. "You never looked at what's really going on." He faced me, his eyes meeting mine for the first time in years. "Emily, I'm sorry. I've been silent too long, letting things veer off course. You were right about Sophie." I froze, breathless. His apology, raw and unexpected, cracked the wall I'd built. Sophie snapped, her voice rising. "You're taking her side? Your daughter, the one you've always loved, is being betrayed over a few texts." Nathan gripped the table. "Don't call them a few texts. That's who you are." Sophie's voice trembled. "I love you, Nathan. I just wanted a stable life. What's wrong with that?" Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Is that love? Planning a divorce before the wedding?" Sophie spun to me, eyes blazing. "This is your fault. If you weren't so jealous, today wouldn't be ruined." I took a breath, calm. "Sophie, you did this to yourself. Don't blame anyone else." Sophie's face twisted. "You've always been the outsider, pretending to be the good one to make Mom guilty. You want to steal everything." I met her gaze, my voice clear. "I don't need to steal. The truth carries its own weight." Mom stepped forward, her voice soft, broken. "Sophie, I can't defend you anymore." Sophie stood frozen, fear flickering in her eyes, not of being caught, but of losing her hold. The room was silent, the truth laid bare, and I knew this wedding would never be the same. The conference room door closed with a soft thud, sealing the fallout of Sophie's exposed deceit at her Vermont wedding, 150 miles from my Albany loft. Nathan's annulment petition, Margaret's revelation of Sophie's manipulative texts, and my parents' stunned silence had shattered the Harris family's facade. I'd walked away from the hallway where they'd seated me, refusing to be their invisible daughter after giving $12,600, $300 a month for utilities, $1,000 for Mom's surgery, $500 for Sophie's classes. Now, as I drove the 3-hour, 150-mile journey home under a starry 70 degrees Fahrenheit night, the consequences of that truth were unraveling for my family, and I felt no need to hold their world. As Emily Harris, I spent 35 years chasing my family's love, pouring $12,600 into their lives, $300 a month for bills, $1,000 for Mom's surgery, $500 for Sophie's dreams, only to be seated in a hallway at my sister's wedding, a stark symbol of my invisibility. Their betrayal, dismissing me as independent to justify their neglect, taught me a brutal truth. Family isn't guaranteed love, it's earned through respect. I was the steady one, giving everything, believing sacrifice would win their pride. But love shouldn't be a transaction, and I paid too long for a seat I'd never get. Walking away from that Vermont resort, I reclaimed my worth, choosing silence over begging. Now I live for myself, designing campaigns that light up Times Square, surrounded by friends who see me, not my wallet. To you, Americans who value family, I say this: don't let duty blind you to disrespect. If your family dims your light, set boundaries. Don't pour your heart into those who won't pour back. Your worth isn't their approval. Recognize when love becomes a one-way street, and have the courage to walk away, not to run, but to find those who lift you up. Build a life where you're enough, not because of what you give, but because of who you are. Perseverance isn't staying in a place that hurts, it's choosing yourself, even when it's hard. Look for the people who celebrate your victories, however small, and let them be your family. That's the freedom I found, and it's the strength I urge you to claim. Don't wait 35 years like I did. Value yourself now, and live a life that reflects it.